These men see nothing wrong with watching a live sex show at work.
Is that her again, though? Yeah.
These women do.
Yes.
They say it reveals an attitude that made their lives hell.
Sheep. Because they just have not got the bottle to stand up and say no.
Tonight on World in Action, why does a uniform make men behave badly?
But it wouldn't be nothing without a woman or a girl.
These women have something in common. They all fought their way into the male world of Britain's uniformed services. A police officer, a soldier, and a firefighter.
How many times have they said to you, well, you're in the police force, what do you expect? Well, you're in the army, what do you expect? Well, you're in this, you know, well, it's male.
All three say they've had to battle against a hidden culture of sexism and harassment, a struggle they all lost.
There's a culture within the uniformed services that's often referred to as the canteen culture, which isolates women, which minimises their importance and their significance with the organisation, and makes them feel that they don't belong.
Is he doing what I think he's doing?
The women have come together to share their experiences and to watch an extraordinary tape that gives a rare insight into why so many service women say they're being abused and harassed by their colleagues. Behaviour that's unacceptable in any job. Two years ago, World in Action sparked a national debate when we broadcast a covert recording made at a private function organised by officers from Greater Manchester Police. The star billing, Bernard Manning, delivered an unrelenting stream of racist and sexist jokes.
She sat there like Miss Peggy with no
At the time, chief constables promised to eliminate sexist and racist behaviour by their officers.
I can't control where my officers go when they are off duty. If we are to try and eliminate the problem of sexism and racism within our society, then one of the first things we've got to do is stop abusing the humour.
2 years on, it seems little progress has been made. The Police Complaints Authority now say increasing allegations of harassment from women officers are undermining public confidence in the police force. A cold, wet night in Lancashire. A teenage girl from a local strippergram agency is escorted to another booking. Inside, 40 men are waiting. One of them is celebrating his birthday. They've paid extra for a special show. But this is one venue where they don't need to worry if things get out of hand. No one will be calling the police. They're already here. These men are detectives from 15 different forces, and this is the headquarters of the Lancashire Constabulary.
Over the years, the police have been some of our best customers. The only thing I was a little surprised at was that it was at the headquarters of Lancashire Police itself.
In fact, the strippergram boss and Lancashire Police are very well known to each other. He's also one of their customers. Recently, he was arrested and charged with running a brothel.
I also run a glamour studio in Lancaster where photographers and amateur cameramen come along to film the girls, usually doing sort of basic striptease sets as a rule. And the police came along and raided our premises and arrested me and charged me with managing a brothel.
Just a few weeks later, other officers from Lancashire asked him to supply a girl for a party.
They originally booked just a basic kissogram, a strip to undies. The routine is just as raunchy, but she keeps more clothes on. When we arrived, we were told, it's okay, there's no one likely to be offended, so could we make it a full strip?
somebody's wife, somebody's girlfriend or somebody's daughter, basically.
I wonder if they knew this was being videoed. Good God. I don't think they cared. They're so carried away.
Sarah, Tania and Alisa were all exposed to pornography as they were hounded out of their careers in the uniformed services.
He looks pathetic. He's taking her clothes off.
I cannot believe that they did that with women there as well.
Look at those other idiots watching. It's just cheap, really. I mean, no consideration for any other woman that might be in the room.
Well, they don't exist, basically.
The strip show has only just begun. Things will get far worse.
This is a man's world.
For former detective Sarah Locker, the video echoes the harassment and abuse she suffered as a policewoman.
Well, I go in the morning and someone said, "Oh, hello, Sarah. Did your husband F you last night? Or have you got stockings on? Oh, can you come over and give me a W? Because, you know, my wife doesn't understand me." And like crudities like that.
As an undercover policewoman in the drug squad, Sarah won commendations working in some of London's toughest areas. But the treatment handed out by some of her colleagues made life harder inside the station than on the street.
I'd go to my tray, my in-tray, and I'd open it up and there'd be pornographic magazines. You know, there'd be like topless women and there'd be my name on the magazine. Or there'd be like homosexual magazines or women with animals. I mean, really ghastly and horrible things. I was sitting at my desk one day and I thought there was someone under the table. I felt there was something under the table. So I looked and there was one of the, you know, a fully grown man under the table on his hands and knees with his tongue hanging out and making a panting noise, looking up my skirt. And once the others realised what was happening, most of them just treated it as a big joke and they were all just laughing and everything. But I felt really dirty and cheap.
Sarah complained about the harassment and discrimination, but speaking out left her ignored by colleagues and isolated in the job.
I used to try and ignore it sometimes. Other times I used to object to it and saying, "Don't be so disgusting, stop it." I was more or less sent to Coventry. I was ignored by my colleagues at work and made to feel in an impossible environment.
An internal police investigation concluded that there was no evidence that Sarah had suffered harassment or discrimination. So Sarah took her case to an external industrial tribunal. Just before the hearing, the Metropolitan Police made a humiliating public apology.
I'm authorised by my Commissioner to express his deepest regret about the stress which has been caused to Sarah Locker by these events.
Sarah was awarded over £30,000 compensation, given a public apology and promotion. The police promised better treatment for women police officers. But the past 2 years have seen a steady stream of other policewomen making similar claims.
We are a macho organisation because of the type of job that we do. And that's a culture which has pervaded within the police service for a long, long time. And that we're finding is taking some breaking down. But there is 100% commitment from chief officers within the police service to ensure that we have got total equality and total fairness for all our staff.
Initially, people don't take it seriously. I think we've got a lot of evidence of that their initial complaint is trivialised, minimised and not dealt with. And often that's the tip of the iceberg, and it would be a lot easier for all parties concerned to deal with it there and then, rather than let it carry on, get to tribunal, get very messy in the press.
Sarah claims the harassment continued when she went back to work. She's now left the Metropolitan Police and is taking them to court. Because of the case, they declined to comment.
This is a man's world.
The Home Office and police do not keep national statistics for the number of women officers claiming harassment. But the Equal Opportunities Commission report an increasing trend of out-of-court payments, which prevent the victims from talking about their cases.
Many applicants end up with no day in court, a gagging clause on which, a confidentiality clause in which they can't speak to the press about what happened, a feeling that the perpetrator has got away scot-free. Often the applicant feels very dissatisfied with the whole process.
We're not looking to hide the facts, and I think that's the important issue. And I'm quite certain in my own mind that the majority of staff within the police service fully appreciate that if they bring issues of this nature to notice, then they will get the strongest of support from their chief officer colleagues and from their supervisors.
So these are professional...
They're training to be a CID officer.
So these are the people that go out and bust people for pornography, for videos, for explicit material, and here they are actually taking part in it.
10 minutes into the video, cheered on by his colleagues, the police officer celebrating his birthday is a willing participant in a live sex show.
Yeah, she's whipping him now with his belt, or some belt.
She's rubbing herself all over him.
Oh.
Stripped to the waist, the officer joins in a sex act with the teenage girl in front of the baying crowd.
This is nothing more than a porno movie, that's what it is.
Absolutely, show jumping for 371.
At 33, Alisa Cook is going back to college to start a new life and build a future working with horses. Until recently, she was an officer in the British Army. Like Sarah, her problem was being a woman in a man's world. After 7 years in the ranks, she graduated as a lieutenant from the elite military college Sandhurst.
The final day was a day that I will always remember. It was a fabulous, fabulous occasion. There were 700 on parade, and after completing the parade, we all march up the steps through Old College. And I really felt I just felt something inside. It's just like an achievement, but it was just, I just felt something. I don't really, difficult to explain what, but I'd made it, I'd done it, and you got in there, and everybody cheered.
As an officer, Alisa's first attachment was to the Royal Artillery in Germany. From the start, she was made to feel unwelcome.
I'd try and start a conversation with them. They'd give a short answer and then they'd just turn away or walk away, or go and talk to the guys in the corner. They'd got really, really drunk and they'd knock on my door at 2 o'clock in the morning with a bottle of champagne, sort of, how about it, and I mean, and you just sort of say, no, go away, I mean, I was 29 years of age, I wasn't a child, I wasn't, I wasn't silly, but you find that apparently I'd rebuff them, and this had a direct effect on with the rest of the guys in the mess. They had great pleasure in telling me, how much I was disliked, how much I was hated, how much I wasn't wanted in that environment, and that they were going to get me, or they were going to get rid of me, or whatever.
Like many women who've left the uniformed services, Alisa is gagged by an out-of-court settlement. Officially, she's not allowed to talk in detail about the daily abuse and harassment. But it's already been reported how the worst moment was the day fellow officers put Alisa's life at risk. They locked her in a shower and let off 4 CS gas canisters.
It got to a point with me where there was one specific incident which involved a gassing, where I was that close to throwing myself out of a 3-story window to escape. That close. I was looking and I was being dragged to the ground mentally to escape, and that was...
It was the only way out.
Well, it was pretty scary, that's all.
Are you on the VA?
Yeah, I just started it on...
Alisa tried to resolve her problems by reporting the harassment to senior officers. Despite moving to a new base, Alisa says the victimization continued. She left the service and took the Army to an industrial tribunal. Before the case was heard, she was offered an apology and an out-of-court payment. This stops her talking about the details of her harassment and the size of the settlement.
This is a man's world. But it wouldn't be nothing.
Last week, the Army announced a new set of measures designed to reduce sexual harassment. A bullying helpline is being set up, and all officers are now given equal opportunities awareness training.
The reality of conflict requires high levels of teamwork in which individual soldiers can rely absolutely on their comrades and their leaders. There can, therefore, be no place in the Army for harassment, bullying and discrimination, which will affect morale and break down the trust and cohesion of the group.
What we have done is to take the whole matter very seriously, to look at it, to see what the problems are, to talk it through amongst ourselves within the chain of command in the initial training group, and to set in hand procedures to ensure that any form of abuse, be that racial, be that sexual, against culture, against creed or whatever, is absolutely a zero-tolerance area.
But that wasn't the experience of Lisa Nicholson, a top recruit who entered Pirbright training base last year. Like other members of her family, she dreamed of a long career as a soldier. But within 9 weeks, sexual harassment ended Lisa's Army service.
The sergeant, right from the first couple of days, he kept saying, "Oh, I don't want bitches in my platoon." And he admitted that he was sexist and he didn't think that girls should be in the Army, and he wasn't into training girls.
Since this interview, Lisa has also been paid off and gagged by the Army. She's not allowed to talk about her experience. The Army say 6 women have made complaints about sexual harassment and assault at Pirbright. Other reports claim the figure is far higher. Earlier this year, one staff sergeant facing rape allegations committed suicide before his case could be investigated.
2 people involved in the Lisa Nicholson case are under investigation. A year after this case started. Why has it taken so long? What's happened?
There are a number of things I think that we do need to improve, and one of them is, I think, is the speed with which we carry out and complete these investigations. Unfortunately, we're a very small army now, and those people in the investigative branches are commensurately small as well. They're busy people. They've got all sorts of things to do. They've got all sorts of things to do in the operational front line. There aren't many people here. It is with great regret that we cannot speed up these things.
She's been treated like that by senior officers. They're watching, condoning this behaviour, and
well, this is like a criminal offence, really, isn't it? Indecency.
It's terrible.
It is disgusting.
Pornography, basically.
That is a typical example. He moved away from her
Exactly,
then. He was
pushed
embarrassed,
him.
and they're pushing him on, jeering, pushing
And he's
him
got
forward,
to.
and he's
One
going to
of the
do
boys,
it.
yeah, the
Sheep,
boys really do.
sheep.
One officer waves some money. Others join in molesting and licking the girl.
They're doing whatever you imagine you could do with a girl.
I mean, he's got his private parts. I mean, the fact that they're police officers, and that's what I used to do, makes me feel even more ashamed. I don't think I'm not going to even bother watching this, because it's just disgusting. They should be ashamed. Should be sacked, as far as I'm concerned.
If you were a woman officer, though, would you be happy to have colleagues like those seen in the video?
Any officer who displays any sexist behaviour towards a female member of staff will not be tolerated, and when those situations are brought to notice, then they will be dealt with most seriously. My attitude in this force, and my staff know it, is that if proven cases of sexual discrimination appear before me in discipline proceedings, then there is only one answer to that, and I will sack the members of staff concerned.
In fact, only 16 officers present at the sex show have been reprimanded, and 6 face formal disciplinary charges. None have been sacked.
The term is firefighter. It's, you know, I mean, it's not fireman, firewoman, it's firefighter, because that's it. We do exactly the same as the men. We're treated no different.
But almost from the start of her career as a firefighter, Tania was singled out for special treatment.
Started off as little nitpicking things, like I wasn't allowed to have my hair streaked, but they didn't give any reasons. There was male firefighters who had streaks in their hair. They kept telling me to get my hair cut, although it was shorter than most of the men on the course. I wasn't allowed to make mistakes, even on the drill ground. They were picked up and then they were banded around the whole of the station. I used to have to get up half an hour earlier than the men, take them tea in bed. And because, you know, it was seen as a woman's job. So I must have been absolutely off my head. Your confidence in everything becomes so eroded that you feel that you'll do anything to just be allowed to get on and do your job.
I think I'd be the first to admit that the service over the last 5 years has had one or two problems in terms of accepting female firefighters into the service, into what was at one time a white male-dominated environment. Those problems have come about because perhaps the service hasn't accepted the cultural change and hasn't really worked hard to make sure the environments were right for females.
Tania's now left the fire service and is studying part-time on a computer access course.
You get like the drip, 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 you get like the Chinese torture type thing, whereas it's an everyday occurrence. There's always something, and your confidence becomes so eroded that you can't function properly.
When the verbal and mental harassment failed to drive her out of the fire service, one officer resorted to physical abuse.
It was one Sunday morning. I'd gone into work. The men were stood down, which means they weren't taking part in the drill. I was told to put my fire kit on. He decided to put me 100 foot up in the cage, so you're stood up over, you know, above 100 feet, and he had me spun round in it for over an hour. Well, the reasons he gave were to cure me of my fear of heights. It made, you know, I mean, I wasn't afraid of heights. I'd done a parachuting course before, and I mean, you don't jump out of a plane if you're frightened of heights.
This is a man's world. This is a man's world.
At an industrial tribunal earlier this year, Tania was given an apology and £200,000 compensation. The size of the award sent shockwaves throughout the service. They've now pledged to stamp out all bullying. Senior officers want the Home Office to give them new powers to make sexual harassment a specific offence.
For example, we have a statutory discipline code which is laid out by government and by the Home Office. Perhaps the time is now right to introduce a specific offence under that code in terms of sexual harassment in the workplace, and perhaps that would give it the prominence it needs.
Any new regulations will come too late to tackle the men who ruined Tania's career. They were only given a verbal warning.
Nothing's ever happened to any of these people. No one's ever been disciplined as a result of what's happened to me.
The services accept some women have suffered as a result of a male-dominated culture. They claim tough measures are in place to stamp it out. But Sarah, Alisa and Tania say it's still ruining the lives of many service women.
It's not acceptable anymore. And, you know, we shouldn't accept it. We shouldn't say, well, that's all right, because in the past, because that's the way it is, because it's not acceptable. And it's about time we let them know that.
Why is it that I'm out of a job? Why is it most other women that have bought cases are out of a job and the people responsible have just been moved across, promoted or put into more specialist posts and carry on happily ever after, all boys together?
This is a man's world. This is a man's world. But it wouldn't be nothing without a woman or a girl. You see,